Have you ever opened up a spreadsheet and just stared at it? You know, the kind that feels less like a data file and more like a digital junk drawer. Yeah, we've all been there. Well, today we are going on a mission to bring order to that chaos. We're going to fine-tune your database until it's not just clean, but powerful. Let's start by looking at our arch nemesis, the messy spreadsheet.
And here it is, a classic. I mean, at first glance, it almost looks okay, right? You've got author info, publisher details, a couple of books, all lined up in a row. But trust me, this layout isn't an organized system. It's a ticking time bomb, just waiting to create headaches.
And boom, here's the trigger. Let's say Laura Jones moves, or maybe she gets married and changes her last name. Now what? Well, with this setup, you have to manually hunt down every single record, every single book she's ever written, and change her details, one by one. A tiny, simple update just turned into a massive, error-prone nightmare. But don't worry, there's a hero in this story. It's called normalization. Think of it as the ultimate organizational philosophy for your data. It's the elegant, systematic way we're going to transform that cluttered mess into a perfectly tidy home for our information. So, what is it really? At its heart, normalization is just the process of tidying up your data to get rid of repetition. The big idea is to make absolutely sure you aren't storing the same piece of info in more than one place. It's all about putting things that belong together. Simple as that. And why do we go through all this trouble? Oh, the payoff is huge. When you stop repeating data, you instantly improve its integrity. That means way fewer mistakes. Your database becomes so much easier to maintain, and maybe most importantly, it's ready to grow. You can add more data later without the whole thing collapsing. Okay, so how do we actually do this? Well, you can think of it like organizing a house. There are basically 3 simple rules we need to follow to get everything in its proper place. Let's break them down. Rule number 1 is the big one. No repeating groups. This is the no junk drawers rule. Every single unique piece of information gets its own dedicated row. You can't just cram a bunch of different things into one cell and call it a day. It just doesn't work. And here's what that problem looks like in the wild. We've got one author, Dan Brown, but 2 of his books, The Da Vinci Code and Digital Fortress, are just jammed into the same title field. How are you supposed to sort your books alphabetically or find just Digital Fortress? You can't. It's a data dead end. So the fix is beautifully simple. We just split that one messy row into 2 clean ones, just like that. Each book has its own unique record. Now the data is searchable, it's logical, it's clean. That, my friends, is called first normal form, or 1NF. Pretty satisfying, right? All right, let's move on to rule number 2. Everything in a table has to be about the main subject of that table, what we call the primary key. Let's go back to our house analogy. The kitchen table is for kitchen stuff, right? Like plates and forks. You don't store your socks in the kitchen. Every room has a purpose. Look at this. We've added store locations to our table to track inventory. But now every single detail about the book, the title, the author, the publisher, is getting repeated for every single store location. We're mixing info about the book with info about the inventory. This is creating a massive amount of redundant data. So what's the solution? We create separate rooms. We pull all that inventory info out into its own stock table. Now all the general book info lives in a dedicated books table, and they're linked together by the ISBN. By doing this, we've just eliminated a ton of repetition. This is called second normal form, or 2NF. And our final rule. This one's a little more subtle, but it's just as critical. No side dependencies. This just means that a piece of information should only depend on the table's main subject, not on some other column in the same table. It's like having one central address book for all your friends instead of writing your friend's address on every single party invitation you send them. Take a look at the author's name here. Does the author's name, Laura Jones, really depend on the book's ISBN? No, not really. It depends on her author ID. That's a side dependency. Storing it here is like writing her full name on every single book record. And the solution is so elegant. We create a new, dedicated author's table. Now, the books table just needs the author ID to connect to all that author information. And here's the magic. If you ever find a typo, say you spelled it Stephen King instead of Stephen King, you only have to fix it in one single place. That's it. This beautiful state of organization is called third normal form, or 3NF. Okay, so our data is now perfectly structured, but how do we keep it that way and make sure it's running at its best? Well, luckily, most database programs like Microsoft Access come with a built-in support crew, a set of amazing tools to help us out. First up, you've got the Performance Analyzer. Think of this guy as your database efficiency expert. You know when you run a report and you have to go make coffee while it loads? This tool scans your entire database and gives you specific, actionable tips to make everything run faster. Next, meet the Table Analyzer. This is basically an automated organizing consultant. It literally looks at your tables and suggests how to split them up to follow the very normalization rules we just talked about. It's a huge help in fighting that data duplication.
Then you've got the Database Documenter. This tool is your own personal archivist. It creates a complete, detailed blueprint of your entire database. Every table, every form, every relationship. This is absolutely priceless if you ever need to hand the project over to someone else, or, let's be honest, just to remind yourself what you were thinking 6 months ago.
And finally, the Database Splitter. This tool is a game changer when you've got multiple people who need to use the database at the same time. It cleverly splits your file into two pieces, a back end which just holds the data tables, and a front end which has all the forms and reports people use. Everyone gets their own front end which improves security and keeps things running smoothly. Okay, so our data is organized, it's efficient. Now we have to protect it. It's time to talk about building a fortress around your information so you can share it with others safely and confidently. And this starts with the absolute basics. A password password is basically leaving your front door wide open. A strong password that mixes uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols, that's your first and maybe most important line of defense. The difference is night and day.
And for sharing your database with others, here is the final pro move. You can save your database as an executable file or in .acde. What this does is it lets people use everything. They can add data, run reports, but it completely locks down the design. Nobody can accidentally delete a field or break the beautiful structure you worked so hard to build.
So, let's end on this thought. Your data isn't just a bunch of text and numbers in a file, it's a truly valuable asset. And taking the time to organize and protect it isn't just about being neat and tidy. It's about building a solid foundation that's reliable, scalable, and truly built to last. So the question is yours?